All right. Is Chris really going to start the stream at 6 a.m.? 5 minutes late. 5 minutes late. It is very early for me. So, I don't really have any excuse other than it is so early for me. I was up at 5 a.m. to get ready for this. Oh God, I need to move that. I got this little like Pokemon Go thing and it just buzzes constantly. And I don't know where to put it and I can't turn the buzzing off. Put it over there. Time zone issue. It's a cozy 3 p.m. in Germany. Nice. Why? Because I have other stuff to do today and I still wanted to get the stream in. So, and I know that when I stream, some people are viewing at midnight anyway. So I thought it would be cool to just do it a little bit earlier. Maybe reach some people before they have to go to bed at 1 a.m. You know? So we're doing it early. Doing like a 2 to 3 hour stream this morning. I'm planning to end somewhere between like 8 and 9. $3 p.m. in Germany. Last Saturday you fell asleep. Yeah, doesn't surprise me. That's all I am. I am a sleep stream. People come, they lurk, they sleep. Everyone gets a good night's rest. Okay, so last week we were working on animation stuff. So we had this character with an arm waving. And where was our other? And then we had walking. These were not meant to be great animations. They were just meant to be separate animations. I think one thing that I learned is kind of that there is like completely separate animations, but there's also additive based on the base skeleton. Hey Ethan, how's it going? Nice to see you. Welcome to the stream. So when we tried to pull this into Bevy, yeah, okay, so this is me debugging Bevy right there. When we tried to pull this into Bevy, hopefully that I cleared everything and upgraded Rust, so hopefully this runs. Great. When we try to pull it into Bevy, this happens when we do additive blending, which is really unfortunate because we kind of need additive blending to do masking, is my understanding. So we end up with this like overly scaled is part of the issue. If I open another terminal here, I can actually show them side by side. So if I go to not add additive blend, we're going to take add additive blend out and just do add blend. And then I'm going to cargo run this again. We end up with this. So you can see that like one of these looks correct and one of these definitely does not look correct. And the question in my mind is why? I think that there are two possible answers in my mind. One is the masking is applied incorrectly and thus the additive blend is doubling up somehow. And the other is that there's just a bug in the additive blend node. This walking animation with the waving is at 50% for both of the animations. This is what the blend node is supposed to do. But we wanted it at 100. So this arm should be going above the shoulder. And yeah, I don't really know exactly why this is happening. So I figured we would maybe construct a simpler example today and try to put that into a different binary and see and confirm that this is actually an issue. So I'm thinking something like 2 1x1 cubes, 2 not 1x1 bones, but 1 length bones. And then we put those both on additive and see what happens. And I think because these are both the same camera, right? So you can see clearly that there's like a scaling issue going on here. I think we need to identify this scaling issue. Somewhat surprised I have to turn the AC on today. So it's one of two things. It's either the animations need to be authored differently for additive, and they can only be used with additive, which would feel weird. Either the masking is wrong, which is also possible, but I don't have a great way to debug whether the masking is correct or not. I think I was digging into the evaluation code inside of Bevy itself. And that's why we see all of these weights logging out, because we are currently using kind of like a custom fork. So this is animation node clip. I guess the clip weights should be 1. So what else do we have here? We have clip and we have add and we have blend. So let's maybe take a look at add. And this does some graph traversal. And I think pet graph got removed. I don't remember exactly. So I don't think this is pet graph anymore. Might still be though. But the graph we have is basically root node, blend node, and then 2 children that are siblings below that blend node. And that blend node can either be additive or blend. And the issue we're having is when it's additive. I'm trying to come up with a reasonable, like, why is this happening the way it's happening? Because it's very clearly, like, mirrored on an axis. Like, the arm looks like it's mirrored on the y-axis, right? Both arms then fold in. And that's true whether the animation is playing or not, because the static arm folds in too. It looks like a really weird, so if, let me rephrase. We have a bone in the arm that is just dedicated to that box. And with the additive for 2 clips that effectively have no animation on that bone gets twisted into like touching the collarbone. I actually don't know which side this is, so maybe we start there actually. Maybe we start with putting some material on this, putting a color on one of these faces so that we can better identify which side is which. And we have a little bit of a better idea of what is actually going wrong here. So we need to UV unwrap. I forget what the auto, if Xavier was here, they would know. It's not Command P. What is the auto UV unwrap button? I don't want the armature, actually. We're in edit mode. So maybe we go to object mode. We go select this. I am unfortunately not an expert at Blender enough to know where the shortcut is. So auto, UV, unwrap, Blender. We don't really need anything fancy. I just need it to unwrap these boxes. And I don't need a video to do it. There are so many buttons in this application. Was it F3 to search? I think it was F3, except for the fact that it's not F3 on my Mac. I think I changed it to FS, maybe? Let's check the key bindings quickly. Also, I need to bump the resolution on this anyway. Interface. Up. Key map. Search menu. Search menu is F3. I don't think there's a way for me to hit F3 without doing the special on this keyboard specifically. I think I need a bigger keyboard for Blender work. The legs look like they're upside down. Yes. Yes, I think things are like flipping. Like they're either doubling up in a weird way or something like that. And one of the things I want to do is actually create a simpler example so that we can like very visibly see what's going wrong. Okay. Maybe I do. Nope. I think page down was something we used for something else. Cycle workspace. Window, search. So if I'm over here, okay. Why can't I find it? UV warp, UV project. Sucks to know what you need and not know how to get to it. Yeah. 3D viewport, UV, unwrap, U, select unwrap. So 3D viewport. Command P, you mean? I wonder if that's used for anything. That would actually be a pretty good option. "3D viewport and UV editor, edit mode." Okay, so we need to be in edit mode. We have everything here, and we need to separate this out. Unwrap. I don't really want to manually move everything, but I will if I have to. All right, well, I guess we are doing it that way. I was really hoping to have a little bit of a what is going on there? What is this? Why does that bone look weird? Oh, bone looks weird because it's okay. Bone looks weird because it's part of a pose, I think. So let's say we select everything easily. Okay, so this is everything. This is just a bunch of separately unwrapped cubes, I think. Two arms are in the same place. The head, I think, is the most confusing one. Confusing is the wrong word. The head is the like it's still UV unwrapped as a cube, but it was subdivided. I don't think it matters that the head is there for the moment, so we'll just leave it. And then these are that's just a cube, and this is just a cube. So I think we're good, actually. I think if I do like this, and I label all of these in the same way, then the head also takes some, and I think the body will also be colored on the bottom, which is fine, actually. So let's make down red, I guess. Missing materials, textures detected. Okay, let's make sure we have a texture on this. Material, new, material one. And then my computer creates a new image. Let's go with debug. That is not the color I wanted. I wonder if there's a fill. Is there a paint bucket? How do I paint bucket by UV box? That feels relevant. Oh well, doesn't matter. I'm just going to do this. Doesn't actually matter that this is not a full color. I just want to label the bottoms. Okay, so we'll save that. Let's export this. GLTF2, character. Rename this to character backup. Export. Cancel both of these. Add the additive blend black. Run this. I guess we don't have the texturing, do we? Do we need to separately... Don't love that. I guess we save as image. So we have our texture, we have the character. Unfortunate that the texture doesn't come with the GLTF export. That's awkward. Is there a way to include that? Am I just fundamentally not using it? That would be interesting. Where's our material? Shader, shading. Add input, image somewhere. Image texture. That does not work because I haven't opened the right texture, at least. Okay, that doesn't actually work for us, so we need to move some of these UVs around. Let's go back to the UV edit. Let's go to... I guess I want to move the other ones, right? So let's select face, select face. These are all going to be in the same spot, unfortunately. That's not what I want. And then grab. Can I not grab? Why can't I grab? Cursor, move. We'll just take these and move them off. We don't really care about like what this looks like in general. We just care that it is differentiated from top and bottom. So export this. Hope that that is enough. Yeah. Okay, so now we have the bottoms clearly identified. And it's clear that the legs reverse upward and the arm flips over the y-axis. That looks like it's just doing a y mirror. Interesting. I want to take a look at the... These are all individual meshes now. At one point we had them mirrored. I wonder if the mirroring messed with anything. Wasn't the wave animation working last week? The wave animation is technically working. How do I say, here we go. Additive blend. If we use the non-additive blend node for animation, everything's fine. The problem is that this is blending at 50% of both animations. And for some reason, when we do additive, I guess I'm wondering if both animations are being added together and not masked properly. I unfortunately don't have a good way to debug what's being masked, which is really awkward. So I've got this, like, I've got a problem and I don't really have a good way to debug it. Also, for anybody who was here last week, there are conversations around how the animation target API and requiring the full length to bones and things like that is not a good user experience. So that is going to get seemingly fixed at some point. Which is great. So wave mask 5, we add the bone arm R to the wave mask. The wave mask we currently aren't using, so let's get back into using the masks. Let's do the masks for both. I do wonder if the target just never finds the bone. Because, like, theoretically, right, if we're doing additive and the masking is set up correctly, then these shouldn't even be adding together. We should be able to mask the legs out and the arm out and have it apply. At least that's the way it works in my head. So I'm going to go forward with the assumption that we've incorrectly specified our masks in some way. So maybe we take a look at the animation example and make sure that we're doing our target IDs correctly. Still no Bevy Inspector GUI 0. Bevy Inspector eGUI is usually one of the last crates to update, in my experience. So I would not be surprised at all if the inspector was not ready. Here's a 15 PR. This is from 2 weeks ago. It might work. Looks like there actually is. It looks like this should work. We can use it. I don't know if it'll work in the sense that, like, I don't know if it'll even help us with the bones, but we can definitely check it out. I don't know why. Why are you like this, GitHub? Use the official CLI instead of giving me some kind of actual URL I can use. Great, 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 great. Wonderful. Let's go to the fork then. Let's Bevy inspector eGUI. What is it? Git equals this. Branch equals this. And let's just see if that compiles in the first place. No matching package, Bevy inspector eGUI. So I always forget whether people use dashes or underscores in their package names. I do kind of wish both just worked, but I get why it's specific. You can't publish both, so that looks wrong. That's 549 dependencies. That's too many dependencies. That makes me think that we're gonna get, yeah, we got Bevy 14 in here somehow. This is not a 0.15 PR. That's weird. Crates, eGUI. Nope, this is 0.15. So let's check the other one. I guess we're not using the right branch or something then. That's 0.15. Branch Bevy underscore 0.15. Right repo. Bevy 0.15. Where are we getting Bevy? What was the command? Cargo I something. Cargo. Cargo tree I Bevy. That's 0.15-dev. Why are we picking up 0.14? Let's see. What path are we using? Temp Bevy. I think that's where we are over here. Pull that back up. If this is 14, I'm going to be really mildly embarrassed. 0.15 dev. I guess let's just make this 0.15.3. Well, not 0.15.3. What is it? 0.15.3 RC.3. 0.15 is 0 RC3. Yeah, but I don't understand why 0.14 came in off 0.15 dev. It looks like we're still pulling it in. I think the really weird thing is that it doesn't show up in the dependency graph. Like, if it's in cargo build, cargo run, downgrading 0.15.3, did I mess something up? Local versus remote, I think. Yeah, I did kind of want to use the local one, but maybe you're right. Maybe I should be doing this just for the moment. Because we aren't currently caring about, yeah, 514. So we dropped 50 dependencies. But we still have 014. And it doesn't show up in the graph. I'm very confused. Maybe I just cargo clean. Blow away the lock file. And run. Still 514, which makes me think that Bevy 0.14 is still being included. But at least we have a fresh lock file to check. I'm blown away that 0.14 ends up in here. Where, let's see, cargo tree I Bevy app instead of Bevy. Yeah, okay, there we go. Bevy's just a bunch of packages, and some of the internal packages, so to speak, were the wrong version. I do not know why we have 0.14. Bevy eGUI, maybe? Oh, we need to override Bevy eGUI for that PR. Bevy eGUI. Not bugs, pull requests. Yeah, there we go. That's it. That makes sense. So we need to patch Bevy eGUI in here. What is it? Patch Bevy eGUI. God, I never remember the syntax for this. Cargo toml patch. Very confused. It's okay. So it's what's going on here is that Bevy eGUI is being used as a dependency of Bevy inspector eGUI is being used by a dependency of our application. So Bevy eGUI, if we don't use the version that we need for Bevy inspector eGUI, we'll get pulled from the cargo registry and we'll try to use 0.14. We don't actually know if that would successfully compile or not because we didn't finish it. I just know that it's wrong ahead of time. So we need to patch Bevy eGUI so that when it looks for crates.io Bevy eGUI, it redirects to this version. So we need to use patch in cargo toml. And the branch is Bevy main. So our dependencies drop. Yeah. So now we have 462. That was the issue. The issue was Bevy eGUI is a dependency of Bevy inspector eGUI. And we were looking to crates.io for Bevy eGUI, of which only 0.14 compatible versions are published. The version that we need for the 0.15 version of Bevy inspector eGUI is still in the Git repo, and we thus need to patch the crates.io checkup to being that branch, which we can do with this patch. You're late? No, I'm early. So we cleaned out all of our dependencies, so we're just doing a full rebuild. Also, good morning, Xavier. I guess it's not morning for you, but we are doing animation stuff again. We're trying to use Bevy Inspector eGUI to get a better look at the bones, because there is a version that works. And I think right now, my best guess as to why the animation is behaving the way it is because we're not masking correctly. There unfortunately is, as far as I know, no way to debug masking. And the way that you target bones is very loose. Unrelated, but searching the Blender menu to find something hurts you inside. The search feature is better on Mac. It's FN F3. Yeah. Searching the Blender menu to find something. Oh, you mean the thing that I do every time I look for something? I rebound the search. It is now FNS for me. Let's make sure that this is compiling. Yeah. So I get why this doesn't do a compile time check against the bones. I kind of wish that at development I could enable some kind of check though. Like when I construct a target ID, have some way to validate that it's a valid target ID, even if it didn't crash the program or anything. Because like I do get the idea that we would load GLTFs at runtime too, right? And then those might not be in the game at all. And thus we might not want compile time checks against that, or we might want to do something dynamically. Totally get that. But I would like a function of some kind to check whether the animation target ID is like valid. Which I don't think we have. Let's check out the implementation of from name. So from name, so our application runs at least, so we can get the Bevy Inspector eGUI stuff. Blake 3 hasher, update with the target namespace. UUID builder from SHA-1 bytes hash as UUID. Okay, so we're hashing the bones somewhere else, and this is actually not finding the bone. So there's a different piece of code. Interesting. So we construct the UUID by using from names, and then we have to use that UUID later to target a bone. Let's get Bevy Inspector eGUI in here. I assume that there's no API changes, so I'm just going to use the root. Or I guess we can go directly to the... Let's see, crates, docs, crates, eGUI, examples, world inspector is what I'm looking for. I don't want the side panel or anything. The quick, not the basic. World inspector. So then we'll go up here and we will plunk in the world inspector. In this case, it's only getting activated if we hit escape. I'm okay with that. Rust Analyzer having a little bit of trouble. Great, much more useful. Searching a few times, then remembering the shortcut is your way to do it. Nice. Okay, so here is our character. I need to name this. Where's our GLTF? I guess I could name it here. Let's do scene root. We'll name this character. And now it'll show up in Bevy Inspector eGUI as character. I could scale this up a little bit, but I don't know how much that'll actually help. So we've got a character here with children on it. Children are nothing really fun. Armature is inside of that. The UUIDs don't have Bevy Inspector eGUI support, which is interesting. We just crashed the app by trying to look at that. That's unfortunate. Scene instance and scene root don't show up here. Yeah, okay. So I think that we have the right IDs because there is no chain of bones. We just have a bunch of bones. Right? They're all bones. They're all at the top level. Unless we need to do armature first. I actually don't know when the chain needs to start. You think it should start at armature? We're definitely going to try that in a second here. So let's do bone arm R, right? And instead of doing from name, we do from names. And from names can just be an array. Front, left foot. This is doing from iter. If we do from names, that takes an iterator of names. Armature is the root. Yeah. That is what we are about to do. So theoretically, from names dot iter, run that. That looks like it changed. Something definitely happened there, so that's good for us. Something is better than nothing. So these are both going to be bone leg, but they'll be basically the same. That looks really, really weird. We might want to bring in a camera modifier here. Let's do, where's our camera? camera, transform. See, it still looks like there's scaling issues. That looks correct from an animation perspective, but it still looks like there's scaling issues. Oh, I made them both leg R, didn't I? Yeah. Thank you. The Fly, 1986. That's funny. Yeah, okay. So, I guess we need to mask the rest of it too. Because masking properly fixed our scaling issues. So I think the issue is that we're double applying the default position, and that Bevy in particular applies that default position twice then. So it scales up by 2 effectively. And however that calculation is done messes it up. So add target to mask group, wave mask. I think we also need to specify every other bone, right? Because wave mask here, bone target, right? Animation 0, I don't remember which one is animation 0. I think it's the walking. Let's look at the character import from the GLTF. So we're going to import from GLB, save this back out as a GLTF. Take a look at the GLTF, look for animations. Animation 0 is this one. Does this have its name? Walk. Yeah, walk is 0. So right now we're masking out the arm from walk and the legs from wave. Where the scaling issue came from. The scaling issue specifically came from this call right here, add additive blend. The issue is that if we don't use this and we run, everything is fine. Because the additive blend is not, how do we say this? The additive blend is adding. So adding things without masking them properly, and without being designed to be additive is causing like 2x or something like that. I don't actually know the calculation. I don't know that it's 2x. But we could just do this specifically. We don't need additive blending here. These animations in particular aren't designed to be additive. It's probably worth me recording this because I was talking about this in the channel and I should be able to send them a hey, this works now. It is definitely, I don't know if it's a documentation issue. It's definitely an issue with my understanding of like how game animation is supposed to work. You know, like it's not necessarily a bug or anything. And it's not necessarily something that should be taught in the Bevy docs, I guess. Like it should be there in terms of what happens. But I think the more relevant piece is maybe documenting how to find the root bone or something. So anyway, when we do additive blend, there's a huge difference. Because these animations weren't authored to be used additively. So when masked properly, they are the right scale. When not masked properly, as you can see from even the places that aren't being animated, they're effectively being added together on the scale. Still a bit weird if none of the animations animate the scale. Yeah, I don't know whether I consider this a bug or not. Because technically, the way that I'm currently working with it, I should be masking everything, I think. Because the only thing my animation touches is like bone arm R or whatever. This is really annoying if that's the case. Like, needing to manually construct, say, what did we call this one? We called this one body. We'll let wave mask bones equal this. For target and wave mask bones, do this. Target, comma. So documentation here. This is not actually the wave mask. This is the walking mask. Maybe you need to add the root bone body for bones that are children of body. There are no children of body. Body is not the root bone. Armature is the root bone. If we go and we look at Blender, this is actually confirmed for us. So armature here, and then all of the others are at the same level. So it's armature, bone body, armature, bone arm L. So in this case, wave mask, right? For wave mask, we need bone arm R, bone arm L, we don't have a bone for the head. So LR body is correct. And then we're going to take this and we're going to do the same thing down here. And this will be the legs. And we will replace that with this. 8. Wave mask bones is not what this is anymore. I feel like these are opposites, like they're not the right names, but okay, so walk mask is everything other than the waving bones, which is body, left arm, legs. So this should, I feel like, work. Yeah. It's currently working. So let's do, yeah, and this is additive blend. So this is additive blend with masking working. Ta-da! That's what we tried to do ages ago. Let me, yeah. Okay. So let's commit this, I think. The blend file, the character, main, lock. I think character image 0 is probably the GLTF export, right? Let's just, I guess, make sure that that's true by deleting the other one and running. Yes. So we need this image here. I actually, I don't know if we need this image. This image, I think, is embedded in the GLB. Now that I think about it. Let me move this out. Yeah, embedded in the GLB. So this is deletable. That's not where I expected Finder to go, but that's fine. Cool. And let's get blend 1 into a git ignore. Cool. So that's all working. That was an adventure. Only took us, or I guess, only took me 5 hours to get through Blender, creating the model, rigging it, animating it, getting it into Bevy, getting the animation actually working correctly with the graph and the additive blending. Whew. Adventure. As my water bottle drops water everywhere. All right. So I want to work with animation events. I'm counting last week and today. Yeah. Those are the only times I worked on it. I literally worked, I did all of this on stream last week and this hour. So 4 hours last week, 1 hour this week is kind of what I'm counting. Which, you know, stream work hours are not exactly the most productive work hours. So probably would have gotten that done sooner in an actual work environment, but I want to do animation events. And then I think the example is basically over after that. So we've got, what event do we trigger here? This is basically like waving and walking. I guess technically if we moved this character around, we could reuse the mesh particles from the animated fox. That feels like cheating though, honestly. Transform. So, what's a good animation event? I think on the second wave, maybe it throws a ball. That's both fairly easy to program or like make happen. And also, interesting thing, I think it would be cool to put a target in Blender and then target that target, if we can, inside of Bevy. So I'm trying to think in my head about how I would do that. I would probably want to add some kind of empty. I think if I was using Blenvy, I'd add an empty, add a component to the empty, and then use that empty as a target. But with a GLTF export, what's the easiest way to do that kind of thing? Let's start out with the animation event. And then we'll move into doing something with it. One thing that's interesting is I think there's a PR open for potentially merged, but there's a PR open for animation. Might be this one. I think it already merged in. There's animation event. Yeah, animation event became event. So I think we want to switch to Bevy main because I don't think this went out in a release candidate yet. Maybe by adding a GLTF extras to the object. There is a GLTF extras reading functionality in Bevy. Can't say that I've used it manually yet, so we might have to figure that out. So anyway, in the release candidate, animation event is what this event is called, and you have to do like an additional derive for the event. But with this change, you don't actually have to do that anymore. So you just get to do the animation event. This holds an animation event function. So what the trigger is, also interestingly, there's a timer trigger that grew out of this. So there's going to be a new, at some point, timer trigger event that you can specify and will trigger on some timer, making it much easier to build triggers or build timers and react to them actually closing. So very exciting there too. So this impulse animation event to specify trigger. Oh, that's the crate. I don't want the crate. I want the example it updates. You used it from Bevy 2, but you had to do a dedicated Blender add-on for the export. It was long ago. You don't remember exactly why. Yeah, for the GLTF extras. There's an example for GLTF extras in Bevy now, but I'm unfamiliar with how to put arbitrary data into that inside of Blender. So since this is merged, we can just look at this on the main branch. So animation events. Animation events is a fairly simple usage compared to the animated fox anyway. So let's see how this has changed. We have our clip, and we add an event with the message event. The message event is only defined as an event. Add the event to the app, and then there's a trigger for message event. So it looks like the trigger happens automatically, which is very cool. You think that for the simple case for GLTF extras, this is, you can add a Blender custom properties and enable an option in the GLTF export to export those as extras. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I also don't know that we need to do that if all we're doing is adding a new mesh. Because the mesh will have a name. And for this demo, like searching for all meshes that have names on the entities and checking the name is fine. So I don't think we need to get into GLTF extras today, but we definitely can. So message text, animation clip. We need access to the animation clip. I think we have that already, right? Add clip with mask. This loads in the animation. So this will be a handle to that. So how do they do it in the Fox example then? They probably do it in some awkward way because of that loading. I guess they init animations in this, right? Somewhere. Observe on step. Let's check that. Observe on step, trigger on step. On step is the event. This has a get clip function. Set up scene once loaded. Okay, so they do the thing where they get the clip from the graph that they're looking for after everything's loaded. And they have a utility function here called get clip somewhere. Get clip, which takes a node index, a graph, and just looks for the clip. So we don't need to do any of that. We can just do that ourselves. So where's the scene instance? Observer, enable animations. Yes, the name thing is easier, less generic, but okay. Also, you check the standard GLTF export add-on as an option to export Blender custom. Oh, it has an option to export Blender custom properties as GLTF extras. Yeah, cool. That's really good to know. So then we could go in and specify which thing we wanted to use rather than needing to hard code it. One of the things that I don't like about this animation API right now is that we have to hard code these bones. And I don't know, maybe we'll take a look at the GLTF for a second. I'm actually now instantly curious about what information we have in this GLTF. So this is the walk animation. It targets node 4. So technically this does animate scale, it looks like. It doesn't actually change anything, but it does look like it has a scale animation in here, which is really interesting. So animations 0. This is the walking animation. Channel, sampler, target. Target node 0. 0, 2, 3. So if we take that and we go look at nodes, then nodes has the name of the bone, but it only has the name of the bone, not the chain. So I actually think that there's no easy way to chain these bones in. We have to work our way up through all of the nodes, check all of the children properties, check the names, and then we can build a generic masking for this, and only mask out the bones that are not being used. But I think there are restrictions around how well that will work. There's an animation graph asset loader on anagraph or .ron.anagraph, but never seen used. That is actually used in the demo. Where's the RON file? Did they remove it? Because we used that RON file when we did the laundry game. So it is in one of these examples. I don't remember which one it's in. Maybe the graph one. Yeah, here we go. animgraph.ron. So there is an example of this in the animation graph example. I have used this before. We used it for the laundry game. Let's look for animation graphs, Fox. So assets, animation graphs, Fox. This is what the RON file looks like. This is relatively human authourable. This could also potentially be written out by a Blender script or something like that. There's definitely tooling that we can build to make this easier. But we do have to build that tooling in some way. It doesn't come built in. Right. So the other thing about this file format is that this file format, I think it just broke. Not that it was like heavily used, but I think the animation or the additive blending for animation graphs or one of those PRs changed this format. So there is some kind of like, this probably needs to be versioned if it's going to have breaking changes like that. But you would want some kind of automation to write it out from Blender or something like that. This also uses like an asset path here. So you have to save it into the same location. Blender would know where you're saving it if you were running this on export. But yeah, there's some considerations here. The other thing is like, how do you build a graph of animations from Blender? I guess technically there's NLA tracks and stuff, right? So you could probably build this automation. Also mask groups are in here. So that would be relevant. Unfortunately, there is no example for mask groups here. But yeah, so the data is there. It's not particularly accessible in the sense that like, it's not particularly easy to use at the moment, but it is there. We could build something. Okay, where was I? I was with the events. Let's do We do need an event at some point. So let's do derive event struct wave peak event. What else do we need? We need to add this to the app. So add event. We need to also make sure this runs on main. So let's grab main from Bevy, which we'll also have to override now because Bevy inspector eGUI is going to look for crates.io RC release Bevy. So this will take a second to compile again because we swapped everything out. Wait, does this mean Bevy is getting a UI? Bevy is getting a UI. Absolutely. It is not getting a UI tomorrow, but there is work undergoing like to build a UI. That is a thing that is happening. If you're interested in that sort of thing, I think that is in the actual Bevy organization now. So if you're interested in editor related stuff or keeping track of like what the development is like and what this is very much a prototyping level stuff. So it's not something you can just like grab and go use in your game right now, anything like that. But if you're interested in what's happening there, that work is generally happening in this repo. There are other things like Bevy editor, please. There's also space editor. So space editor is kind of like a free prefab editor, more or less. Bevy editor, please is, if I remember correctly, a Bevy inspector eGUI, Bevy eGUI kind of set of panels and stuff. So like there's editor work happening in the community. There's editor work happening in Bevy's organization. UI is coming, right? Like a Bevy UI is coming at some point. When? I can't tell you. Depends on when people do the work, how much time people have, etc. But it is coming at some point. The Bevy project understands that a UI is necessary. So there will be one. Looks like all of our dependencies here are okay. Not okay. Not okay, actually. How do we rectify the RC with -dev? I actually don't know the answer to that. I think we need to go local. Wow, Rust compilation time. This is a full rebuild. I changed the dependencies completely and grabbed raw source code to rebuild stuff. So don't take this as like the speed at which it takes to rebuild like an incremental Bevy game and stuff. This is a full from source, from GitHub, downloaded rebuild. So yes, it will take a little bit of time. But don't think that that is like the standard. There's also other things, which I'll talk about in a second because I need to pull this stuff first. Okay, all of that. And then we need to go in here and change the version. It is important to keep in mind that what I'm doing here is unreleased. I'm working with unreleased code. So the average experience of working with Bevy is not what I'm doing right now. I'm doing weird shit. That doesn't look right either. I messed something up. Is Rust like Java in that it runs everywhere? I guess yes and no to an extent. Like there's no universal Rust binary. Like there's no a JVM kind of thing. But you like Paper Tiger is saying, you can compile it for a whole bunch of different operating systems. You can even statically compile it using muscle libc or whatever, but it is not JVM. RC3 Bevy, this is still pointing to the Git repo. This needs to point to local. The other thing I'll mention about build times is that I have optimizations on for the Bevy crates. So one of the reasons that this compile is slower than it otherwise would be is because I'm optimizing Bevy's code to a higher extent. The other thing that I'll mention is that there are Bevy cheatbook. See if I can find this off the rip. It's always funny when I search for Bevy stuff and it's just like Chris in the YouTube videos. Debug build optimization, some other optimizations, things like that. There are, I never remember where to find this, but I think it's on the website. Not the quick start guide necessarily. I know the specific like crates and stuff that I'm thinking of. I'm just trying to find an example to point people to. Crate size, licensing, troubleshooting, next steps, Bevy examples. Is this not in... I thought this was in the tutorial. Is it in setup? Yeah, okay. So compile with performance optimizations. That's what we were just talking about. This optimizes Bevy a bit. There's some WASM stuff here. But then there's also like dynamic linking, which I'm not using at all. Like 0% using dynamic linking, which greatly increases compilation speed and stuff like that. Also not using any alternative linkers, which can be faster. macOS is not the fastest at linking. You can use things for development like crane lift that also increase. The nightly compiler also has benefits. Like there's a bunch of stuff here that speeds that up. And then if you want to get really experimental, there's Dexterous Developer, which is a Rust hot reloading system, which increases it again. And also the other thing that I would mention is that people who are building production Unity games and are also working with Bevy have said that the compile times are similar once you get into like a production level game. So I don't know much about Unity in that sense, but I trust the people who said that. But again, it's just their experience and stuff. LTO and compile units 1 are slow too. Yeah. Somebody recently showed demo of a Bevy running on an RP2040 with an e-paper display with Bevy and no standard. Yeah, the Bevy no standard stuff is really cool. And And the I saw it earlier, but Paper Tiger mentioned the N64 toolchain. Like Bevy running on retro consoles, so cool. I have seen Bacon. Bacon got a new release recently, actually. I don't love using Bacon personally, but that's just a me thing. That is not a. It's not like a bad thing, you know. One of the reasons that I don't use Bacon is, to some extent, I try to keep my tool chain standard, so that when people watch me on stream, they understand what I'm doing, and can translate it to what they're doing. Let's get rid of Bevy Inspector eGUI because we don't need it. And it's just going to cause us some issues here. Do you like Bacon, Hukasu? Not the food, but the the Rust tool. C++ is also slow to compile, but does not have an incremental build, so the two are about the same in the end. Yeah, Rust incremental builds are pretty fast. I actually, like, when I'm regularly working on a game or something like that, I don't feel the need to reach out for these, like, shared library or Rust hot reloading tools. I know that's not going to be true for everybody. Like, it's kind of a personal thing, right? I find a lot of success in relying on the compiler and working in my editor. No eGUI, what sort of heresy is this? I had to turn it off because I don't know if it works with the main Bevy branch right now. And I saw a compiler, and it was very clearly related to a Bevy Inspector eGUI. I think it was this input toggle, actually. So don't need it. We don't need it for this demo either. You only heard about Bacon yesterday from a friend who's getting into Rust. Yeah. I think Bacon is fine. I don't use it. I don't know. I've tried it. I don't necessarily like how it decides what to show. But yeah. You tried Unreal 2 years ago and it had similar compile times. Yeah, I actually like... The way that I think about Rust compile times is that you can either do the work at compile time or you can do the work at runtime. And Rust does a lot of stuff to avoid doing work at runtime and optimizing the runtime speed. And for most things that I do, I would rather have Rust spend that time in the compile and have a faster user experience, right? Not to say that developer experience isn't important, that compile time improvements aren't useful. I would love to see compile time improvements forever. But there is actual work happening in the compile, and I want that work to happen. So I'm willing to pay at least some compile time cost for what Rust gives me. What else do we have going on here? We need to do this event stuff. We do need to get, so we need to get the clip. We need to add the event with the message event. Kind of interesting that these are hard-coded values. But I guess that makes sense. So we add event for message event, event and clone. We need to implement clone for ours. That's something I didn't do. And we'll add it twice, I guess. And we'll say, I don't know, peak count. So like the first wave peak and the second wave peak. And then enable animations is where we're doing this. So we have the animation graph. We are doing this a little bit weird, it feels like. Because technically this animation clip is already loaded. And we do need access to the actual animation clip. So we have main running here now. So let's just get rid of these extra stuffs. Keep our little one waiting over there. So we have to decide how to get the clips. Which does not mean we need the GLTF, technically. So this is just looking for all of the animation clips. But GLTF, if I remember correctly, will have all of the animation clips as well. Say named animations. So we can actually go here, named animations. We still have the handle to the animation clip. So we need to have this resource for these animation clips anyway. Let's call this animation clips instead of shortening it. Is it more than setting cargo watch? Bacon? Yeah, it's more than setting cargo watch. It decides what you're going to see, like what kind of errors you see when you see them, and it reverses the order of the output, if I remember correctly. I haven't looked into the most recent release, so things might have changed a little bit. Bacon is... In what ways is Bacon different than an LSP? Bacon runs in your terminal. It shows you the errors. So in that sense, like if I was going to open the errors tab here, kind of the same thing, except for the fact that I can't click and go to different places like this. So like strictly less useful than an LSP in the sense that if you have it running in your editor with Rust Analyzer already, you might not need Bacon. One of the things that people like about the Cargo CLI output is that it can be more verbose, like it can give you more information. Sometimes the LSPs will cut off certain information. But if you aren't running into that issue, then not a problem. Bacon will also try to show you like the most relevant error first. I forget exactly how it does that these days. But there's some like, it's a little bit more than just CLI output. It is like a UI to the errors. So in that sense, it's the same as looking in the errors panel in your LSP. It doesn't show you things like in place. You can't click to go to that file, things like that. But it's kind of like cargo watch check with a slightly different UI. You fought with an ecograph library a while ago. Ecograph. What is an egograph? Spent days trying to find a bug, then tried to do the same in Pure Bevy, and it took 3 hours to get a prototype. Nice. What is an egograph? Is that a typo? EGUI. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think there's interesting things for EGUI. EGUI node editor. There's EGUI node graph. There's a different one though. Maybe it links to it from here. So like this exists for eGUI. There's a couple of other ones. I starts with an S. I can't remember the name of it though. Snarl. That's what's nice about maintaining a weekly newsletter website. So this is the new like node editor for eGUI, I guess. But yeah, there's also some other things that are interesting in that sense. I know Dreamer Talent has worked on some node graph stuff with Bevy UI. Good morning, Prince. How are you doing? I feel like I need another, not coffee, but something. I need something. Let's see, animation clips. What's new in animations in this release? What is new in animations in this release? I've been in the animation stuff so much recently that I don't remember what's new anymore. And additive blending and masking, bone masking. So you can do animations where you walk and punch and things like that. And you can mask the legs off and the arm off and whatnot. And you can mask off like a hand to hold a weapon and things like that. That's all new in 0.15. Some of the APIs changed. The animation stuff is integrated with the curves work that was happening in 0.14's release cycle. Animation events are also new. So you can do events based on offsets of the animation clips. Coffee recommendation. Try espresso, sugar, and cocoa powder. That sounds delicious. I unfortunately don't have an espresso machine, but I'm increasingly getting closer to buying one. Who do I think is the best developer in Bevy currently? I would not stack rank people. That is a thing that I don't do. There are a lot of people doing a lot of great work. And I would not place any one of them over another one. And a lot of them work in different areas, so it doesn't even make sense to do that. Okay, animation clips, animation graph. We have this entity. Can we get the GLTF from this? We're building the animation graph here. We're kind of just assuming that we're targeting the right one. So maybe that's fine. You're the best dev in Bevy. Well, if you're going to claim the title, got to do something worth the title. Your espresso machine is 20 years old, still going strong. Try espresso, no sugar, no milk, no almond juice, no cocoa, no cinnamon, nothing but try espresso. I don't have the coffee beans next to me right now, but Luminous coffee. I'm a Lumi. This is that's not the one that I got. This one's the one that I got. This is sitting on my shelf right now. Columbia Black Honey Carbonic Maceration Koji. And I have to say, they sent it to me with an instant coffee in this little pouch right here. And the instant coffee was really good. The instant coffee was very, very good. So I'm very much looking forward to the beans. Yeah, the instant coffee was good. I think, so it's been like, it's just the fact that all of the instant coffee I've had before has been cheap instant coffee. And I think that this place, Xander was telling me that this place does instant coffee services globally for other coffee brands. So I would expect their instant coffee to be better. You like matcha, I forget how to say that. Matcha green tea powder? Nice. How does the current Bevy compare to something like Godot, and how promising is Bevy? Bevy is very promising. Bevy's strengths come in how you can replace things and what pieces you can use, how modular it is. I think that there's a number of strengths in the sense that, like, Tiny Glade, for example, started with Bevy 0.6. And they have rendering experts, like hard rendering experts. And one of the things that Bevy let them do is they got to use the ECS, but they got to replace the renderer with their custom ray-marched, like, top of the line renderer. And that was, I don't want to say it was easy for them to do, because obviously building something like that takes a lot of expertise, and I'm sure was filled with plenty of challenges. But Bevy made that possible to do, right? They could just replace the renderer with this ray-marched renderer that they wanted to replace it with. And they got to do things however they wanted to, and they produced this game. That is one of the strengths of Bevy, that you can do that kind of thing. It is not as strong when you're trying to do like a standard 2D like platformer. Like if you're going to build your first 2D platformer, or you're going to build a 2D platformer really at all, there are plenty of things that Godot gives you that Bevy doesn't have, right? A UI is one of them. And just like 2D platformers are heavily dependent on their art style, right? So like Nine Souls is a recent kind of 2D platformer. And the game is beautiful, but like the difference between Nine Souls and another platformer is really the art style and a lot of like the visual and the storyline and things like that. And Bevy doesn't help you with a storyline. Bevy doesn't help you with the art, and the art can actually be kind of harder because it doesn't have a UI sometimes. So I think if you're doing certain kinds of projects, definitely go with Godot. If you're doing certain other kinds of projects, definitely go with Bevy. Like simulation games, Bevy, fantastic, right? Anything where you need to churn through like really tight packs of really large groups of enemies or something like that, Bevy's great. I'm very, like, Bevy is very promising. I'm very excited to see Bevy over the next few years. But there's definitely reasons to choose other engines. And nobody, as far as I'm aware, nobody in the Bevy community will tell you differently. Like there's no Bevy supremacy thing going on. Like Bevy and Godot and other open source engines all coexist really well. If Bevy doesn't work for you, people will go, hey, Godot's right there. Go use it. It's wonderful. So yeah, that's the whole spiel. Each branch, game dev in general, is its own job. Absolutely. Rendering, networking, gameplay, environments, modeling, rigging, etc. Sage and sour. I don't know what sage and sour is. Is that a gardening term? Path of the Teal Lotus. Is that what the game is actually called? Nine Souls? I actually don't know that. I've played the game. But I just think of it as Nine Souls. You like how Bevy seems to be so modular? It really, really is. And the plugin system is really, really nice. And the ability to just like for the animation stuff that I was trying to debug, like here's the source code and it's all written in Rust, and I already write Rust for my game, right? So like there's something really, really, really nice about being able to click in here, go into Bevy animation and be like, okay, well, this is the animation code. I can go look at the graph implementation if I want to, right? And it's written in Rust, which is the same language I'm using to write my game, which means that I can actually understand this, as opposed to like maybe using C# for the game and C for the actual like engine or something like that. Yeah, gardening related. Yeah, that makes sense. Third place. That sounds cool. I'm a pro gardener myself. Path of the Teal Lotus is another game. Path of the Teal Lotus. Interesting. Is this by the same people? Interesting. Why do I feel like I've played this too? They look very similar. I'll have to check this out. Yeah. Just another example of 2D with great art. Yeah, I mean, it looks fantastic. But yeah, I think if you're very, very heavily art focused, Bevy doesn't support you as well as it could right now. That's not to say you can't do it. That's not to say you can't make beautiful things. Tiny Glade is beautiful, right? But it does take some expertise to do so currently. And it does take some work to build up your workflows. That's not to say that you won't have to build up workflows in other engines. But if you are, if you're going to do a 2D platformer, what's their name? I'm blanking. Brackeys. Like, here's a tutorial for how to do a 2D platformer. It's, I don't know, half an hour long or whatever it is. And it covers tile maps and interactivity and all that other stuff. There's not as many tutorials for Bevy out there right now. It's one of the things I'm trying to, put out, but can't do everything, Yeah. Okay, events. Let's get an event to work. Getting distracted talking about everything, which is fine. That's what the stream is for. We need to get the clips. How do we get the clips is the question. We have the wave peak event. We have the animation clips. The GLTF will have the animations. I think we will only have one GLTF. Let's see. For our purposes, I'm going to take a shortcut here, I think, and do a debug on this GLTF. I think we're only going to have one because we're only loading one. Obviously, you would need to do something slightly different if you had multiple. What else do we have here? There's a debug call in here that I want to get rid of. The animation graph debug call. Cool. So let's cargo run this. We should get the GLTF here. Recursion limit for res for GLTF. Is that because of this? I might have messed up the resource requirement for GLTF. Or it might be recursive, actually, now that I think about it. GLTF should be loaded when this spawns in. What is the issue there? Let's go for examples. Is there a GLTF folder? I forget. Doesn't look like it. Load GLTF. This doesn't query for it. GLTF, what's the implementations on this? Asset should be a part of assets. Whereas assets GLTF, that looks right to me. Why is there no GLTF here? Named animations. Yep, sure. Shared reference. There's no GLTF. What have I done? Does it not insert the GLTF if we load a scene? That's interesting. Okay, so we can't rely on the GLTF existing, which is really interesting, actually. For animation clips, let's do this same little thing that we're doing here. And see what we get. No clips either. Something feels off. What have I done? If we don't have the clip before this, then we can't access the clip here because this gives us back a handle. And this is effectively async. That's annoying. That's really annoying. I know Bevy Asset Loader has a 0.15 release. So maybe for now, what we do is we just pull in Bevy Asset Loader and we skip the whole loading issue. Is it a PR? Yeah, it's PR. Bevy 0.15 branch. Everybody names their branches differently, which is kind of mildly hilarious. So let's grab Bevy Asset Loader here. Is it dashes or is it underscores? Asset Loader. Get equals this. And I'm kind of just doing this as a shortcut. I would really like to see some kind of Bevy Asset Loader functionality in Bevy, but I also understand kind of like why it's not there. Let's make that run. And let's take a look at the examples in the meantime. Cool, it's running. Examples. We don't really need anything special. We don't need progress tracking. IS Progress got a release this week with a full rewrite, which is cool. Full collection failure state, custom loading state. We don't really need any of this. I don't really need states in general. Don't need recursive loading. It's a little bit more complicated than I want to get, but it's fine. We can do states. States are pretty easy. Let's just put this all down here. We don't need any of that. We do need an init state and the loading state and the on enter. So this is taking our state. This is going to load everything in, and once everything is loaded, transition us to the next state, which is exactly what we need. Bevy asset loader prelude right at the top. Can Rust be used in cybersecurity tooling like they use Python, custom CLI tools, or scripts? I guess. I'm not a cybersecurity professional, so my guess is that you would find people who specifically like the scripting style of Python and have it already installed on systems that they are using. That would be my guess. Plus the accumulation of tools would be the other thing in my mind. My guess is that Python is not going to switch to, or like cybersecurity Python is not going to switch to Rust. That's my guess anyway. Okay, we're going to switch setup to run on this next state. So we're going to do asset loading. When our assets load, which are defined in this assets collection, we're going to continue to the next state. In that next state, when we enter, we're going to run setup, which is the same function that we were running before, which should run everything. And then we'll have our scene and stuff like that. And when we do this, then we will have access to our character. And I'm going to load this as a GLTF, and this is going to be character.glb. And this should just work out for us. So here, instead, we'll do assets, res, my assets, if I remember correctly. And then this is going to be assets dot character dot something or other. This will be GLTFs, res, resource, assets, GLTF, GLTFs.get this character. I think this is an okay. Let okay GLTF equals this, else return warn not loaded. We expect this to be loaded. I don't want to crash, but it'll be fine. This needs to be a shared asset. This needs to be, I guess, sum and not result. Then we have GLTF, and then we can debug GLTF dot named animations. And this needs to be a shared reference. And this should all work. Okay, so this seems to work now. We have all the named animations. We have walk and we have wave. So for this, we have these things. We need to be able to get these. I think that we can probably do this, not here. Actually, we could probably do this in setup now that I think about it, but I'm going to leave it here just because. Doesn't really matter where we do this. GLTF.named animations Get walk unwrap because it'll be there. That's a handle to a walk clip. So we're going to do animation clips get on this, which will give us an option animation clip, which also unwraps. There's an issue with this. Let's run the compiler to find out what it is. Looks like a referencing issue. So this should be the walking clip. We actually don't want the walking clip though. We want the waving clip. So wave clip dot add event. What is this? A duration? I forget. That's the GLTF load. Timer and event. This is going to be wave peak event with a peak count, which in this case is going to be 1. And then we do this again for 2. And this needs to be mutable because we're going to mutate it. This needs to be get mute in that situation. I guess that doesn't need to be mute because we're reaching into it. But we do need our handler. Where's the handler? This is the handler, I think. Edit message. So this trigger, or this fires an observer that we can then listen to. We haven't, I'm going to call this on wave peak. Is going to trigger for wave peak event. Don't care about this text thing here. All we're going to do is debug trigger dot event dot peak count. And this is going to be an observer, so we need to add the observer. In this case, we're going to add it globally. So we have our GLTF that we pulled in from Bevy Asset Loader that's loaded. So we look at the animation clips. We go to the named animations to get it by name. We take that wave clip and we say, hey, at some point, let's say 0.2 and 0.5. The seconds offset is really awkward because that's not the way I'm thinking about this animation. The animation is defined in 24 frames. So let's do a calculation for what the offset is here. Animation for wave. Why does this not look like I expected it to look? Because we're in the wrong mode? Is that why? Pose mode. Wave. Wave is a 24 frame animation. It peaks on frame 8 and 18. So let's do 8 over 24 and 18 over 24 so that we don't have to do the math. And then we cargo run here. And if I make this bigger, actually, if I make it bigger, I need to still show the terminal. So now we're triggering this event at both peaks of the animation. So every time the wave hits the top, which there are 2 times in one animation, 24 frames per second, this event fires. And now we have an observer that can do whatever we want at that point. If we wanted to, where's the observer? Here's the observer. Let's do mute commands, right? And let's do, how do we get the transform? We query for the transform, all of the transforms. So let's do transform equals trigger dot entity, if I remember correctly. Yep. And this is going to be query.get trigger.entity.unwrap because it needs to exist. So we'll have a transform and then commands.spawn. Let's go check the example for 3D object spawning. This is probably going to be the middle of the body if I'm thinking about this correctly, because our character mesh is a single mesh. Or not, that's not the right way to say that, but cuboid, let's make a sphere, UV sphere. And we'll need meshes here. We will not need images. And we will need this code right here. So we're going to spawn a 3D shape. In this case, it's going to be this. So we'll just dump that in there. The debug material they have here is a UV. I guess we could take the UV. Let's do the UV debug texture. I do like the UV debug texture. I wish it was built in. So if we take the UV debug texture, I'm just going to dump this down here because it's not really relevant to the example per se. We do need to set this up when we do our addition here. And we do need some imports. So let's do this in, why not? We could do it in here. This is enable animations. So we'll need materials down in enable animations. Will we though? No, let's do it in, let's do it up here. Doesn't matter. This is not the best place to do that because we'll be doing it every time, but this is not a performance intensive application. I am not worried about it. So this transform becomes our transform. This shape identifier isn't necessary. Spawn mesh 3D. There's something wrong with this, so let's figure out what that is. You think any language can do scripting and make tools to support low-level bindings for operating system? I mean, like, you would need an interpreter for Rust probably. Like, you can write whatever you want in Rust. It will work. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the best choice. And I think that the large ecosystem of Python scripts for what you were talking about earlier is really relevant. if you're talking about Rust like being used inside of an industry. Can the event contain add, send, associate the location of the end of the bone? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if the entity... I don't know if the entity for this trigger is the bone or not, actually. We're about to find out where the transform is, so we'll find out in a second here. Need some additional imports. Something wrong with spawn. Invalid bundle. Mesh 3D, mesh material 3D transform. Oh, I probably need to clone this. Yeah. A shared reference to a transform doesn't work there. We need an actual transform struct. Yeah, so it's centered at the bottom of the player currently. Let's also add a marker here. Let's say I don't know. Emitted object. And let's do a function that moves objects. We will query probably in a mutable way. For mute transforms with emitted object. For transform in query, we'll mutably iterate. This is going to be the wrong logic to use, just to be clear. I'm just trying to get something quick. Let's move it along the x-axis. Let's move it 0.1 per frame. So this is frame dependent transform. That does not mean we're going to derive component on this. Mute transform. What is the issue there? Transform.translation.x. What's the issue with transform? Local variable, did I misspell it? Yes, I did. Transform. Okay, so that will work. We need to run this in update. We could run this in fixed update, right? It'll be a little janky, I think, but that's fine. So they're spawning at the bottom of our character, so not at the bone. I think we also want to move it along the z-axis, not the x-axis. So the question is, how do we get that bone location? Because it's got to be the armature, right? That's triggering this. Whatever the animation player is on. Is there the equivalent of JavaScript function generators with yield in Rust? There are Rust generators. They are used internally by the compiler. They are not... oh, that's not what I wanted. It would be great if one of these... There we go. Technically, there are generators. So if you want to go play with them, you can definitely play with them. They are unstable. I don't know that I would suggest using them in an actual program, but if you want to, you know, play with them, go play with them. 43122. Issues 43122. Generators are a long-standing feature request. Coroutine sounds right too. I think generators got deprecated is the wrong word, but coroutines is what we're moving forward with. I don't keep up on this too much because it doesn't look like it's going to land right now. But yeah, things like that exist. There are also libraries that can do stuff like that for you. So yes, soft yes is the answer, but I don't know that I would use anything that was that unstable and that large of a language feature. Okay, so the question is, how do we find the right bone? We have the animation target ID. We could, I guess there are really two things here, right? One is we can add an element here and look for it. Or we can try to do some calculation. I feel like the adding something here and then looking for it is the right answer. So maybe we just do that off the bat. So right arm, maybe an empty at the bottom of the right arm. We're in edit mode. I don't really want edit mode. Let's add a mesh. No, add a... Hopefully the empty is going to come in. We don't have too much time to do this. So I'm trying to think about what the best way to do this is for the moment. So an empty, that was a sphere. I don't know why my origin is over there. That's unfortunate. Need this to be up. Need this to be over. Try to put this somewhere in the center-ish of that hand. And then maybe we offset it a little bit. Yeah, it seems reasonable at least. So this is an empty, and this empty is named spawner. And this whole scene comes in when we do the scene, I believe. So I believe we will get this if we export. Image debug 1 doesn't have any image data. That's fine. I think I deleted that earlier. So let's try to save this. Open, fake user, image, save, modeling, export. I should keep the blend file and the assets produced by it in separate directories, and I didn't do that. Okay, so that's a question, and then in move object isn't what we want. We want debug spawner. This will be names specifically. We're literally going to query for all names at the moment. And we're going to debug all names every frame. So we run this. Yeah, the 3D cursor was there. Yeah. I didn't know. I don't know when I did that, if that makes sense. So there is a spawner here. I unfortunately don't know what's on this spawner. So let's go with commands. Right? And then we will query for entity name. And we'll do entity name, and if name equals spawner, do a thing. We'll do entity dot log components. If we'll just make this also a name, I think that's the issue here. If the name is spawner, then log the components out. So spawner has transform, visibility, parent, and name. And in our case, we only do it at the top here. So we actually aren't even animating the spawner. That's fine for us right now. I do want to go back in and fix that. Maybe we change the animation to do one at the top and one at the bottom. Yes, I would need to either parent the empty to the bone or something like that to make it move. That's what I was just mentioning. Moving a little bit fast to try to wrap this up. So peak count, transform, in which case, if we have the spawner stuff, right, query for name, we are iterating over every named entity, so technically could be inefficient, but we don't really actually care at the moment. Material, transform. This transform is what we're trying to replace. And we're trying to replace that with the spawner entity. So instead of this, we'll do find. Entity, well, transform is really what we need. So transform name. And this test will be our test. We don't need this anymore. We don't need a loop. We do need to iter. We don't need to reference. What is this is a double reference. It's fine. And then transform will be an option, but we'll always find one or we'll be in trouble. And then this needs to be transform. And this will be transform and name, which we're not using name at the moment. So I'll underscore it. We don't use transform here, which I'll underscore. So if we've done everything correctly, then we have an empty that we put in Blender. We pulled it into Bevy. This should only spawn at that spawner. And it does. So let's get rid of some of this debug. Specifically, this spawner doesn't need to be debugged anymore because we know it works. So the question here is, if we go into, I guess, animation, right? And we look at the armature. We want this empty to be controlled by the right arm. So it's probably in the wrong spot right now. So let's move it down, I guess, and then parent it to the right arm. That looks like a reasonable spot. And then how do I parent it to this arm? That's not how you spell parent. Parent. Nope. Do I set parent to bone? There we go. That is exactly what I did, Xavier. I was able to figure it out. Okay, so let's do... Eight is the top, 14 is mid, or... So I guess 0 or 24 is really what we're looking for here, right? So 18 and 24. We need to export. Also, good morning, Trevor. How's it going? We've been going for two and a half hours at this point. Kind of an early stream today. I've got some stuff to do, and if I'm being honest, that stuff is playing Pokemon Go later. Oh, I broke the thing. Let me turn that on. It is on. It should be working. Yada yada yada. This UI is really not the easiest to navigate. Commands look fine. Platforms. I think this is not connected. Stream apps, OBS, platform, YouTube. Connected. Says it's connected. See if it works for me. Did I just mess it up for everybody else? Is nobody else allowed to do it? I don't think anybody's allowed to do it. Oh, allow all. I think it's fine. I don't know. I messed something up, clearly. The command is still there. Supposed to work. Looks like it's connected. I don't know. Here we go. Look, the bot worked. No. I don't know what happened there. I don't have the moment to fix it for right now, but that's the Discord if anybody's interested. Okay, so did I complete the export over here? I don't even, losing my mind. Interesting that that doesn't work anymore. Save this. Export GLTF. Run this. Is it because it's parented now? Let's get that debug spawner back in here. Transform, still there. Animation target. The only thing we changed was that it's parented now. Still named spawner, still can find it. But the transform for the spawner has changed. Oh, you know, it moved when I parented it. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it. It moved inside of the armature? No, it moved inside of, yeah, it moved inside of the armature. So actually, what is the transform of this if it's inside of that armature now? Because it was parented to this bone, which means what for the transform? Global transform? I don't think those are going to be different, but we can do that. We also need to do the Matrix, -1, 3, and then transform is... I guess it is global transform? So then this should be moving, right? It is moving to some extent. Don't love that though. Transform. Oh, because it's transform based off the parent. Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. How do we get a transform from a global transform? I think we can just use it, right? Yeah, from global. Transform from... And then we probably don't need to clone it because I thought I was in insert mode. I was like, how? I haven't been in insert mode in a decade. How did I get into insert mode? I haven't had insert mode on a keyboard in, oh man, who knows how long. Okay, so now it's up there. And now the other thing I want to do is check these events. So we use global transform because global transform is the position in the world, where the transform, now that it's a child of the armature, is an offset from the armature. So wave clip, add event, 824. Let's add another one. And let's say it's at 0. I think 0 works here for us. And that'll be 1 at the bottom, 2 at the top. And then we can get rid of this transform. Let's do the whole window, I guess. Recording video. Does Bevy handle the parenting to a bone and update the global transform during animation? Yes. Responding to yourself because I didn't. That's it. That is everything. That is bone masking, additive blending, animation events. And I know that this was a little bit of a meandering, we'll call it, stream. But yeah. Let's see, estimated size. Trim and convert that. Cool. All right. I think that is it for the stream for today, honestly. This is exactly what we wanted to do, exactly what we wanted to get done. This is bone masking. The waving and the legs walking are 2 different animations. They are masked for the rest of the body, additively blended using an animation graph. And then we have an empty on the end of the bone arm to the right, which is parented to that hand effectively. That is then spawning animation events at frame offsets 0, 8, and 18. So you can see it whenever it hits the top. Those are the offsets for the top, and then 0 is the bottom. And that is animation blending and animation events, which is very cool. I'm glad we figured all that out. The big difference, I think, between additive blending and regular blending is that the bone masking needs to be correct and it needs to be from the root. So for our purposes, if we go back and look at our setup inside of Blender here, armature is actually our root. So we need to go armature and then bone, armature bone, for the full path for the animation target ID. And that is how you identify the masking. Cool. Only took us 7 hours. 0.15 is coming out when it's ready, Miner. 0.15 is close. I believe the release notes are kind of the last thing to be making it in at the moment. Where's the milestone? Milestone here, 15. We have 4 open issues. Looks like somebody wants to get WebSocket for the remote HTTP plugin. That sounds like BRP stuff, the Bevy remote protocol. iOS example crashes. That seems like we need to get that fixed. Performance regression between RC2 and RC3 is interesting. And then animated property and animated property optional look like it's slated for 0.15. That's cool. So the APIs for animation will change a little bit more, especially when it comes to curves. I think, if I understand how the implementation works correctly, that if we curve an animation, we can still do the offset for the events based on the original keyframes. So if for some reason we wanted it to speed up towards the end, we can do that with the curve, and then the events are still defined in terms of the frame rate. Xavier says, on a more normal armature, all bones would have parents with the body being the root bone. In our current case, animating a jump animation, the head, arms, and legs would not jump with the body. Yes. Yes, we used a simplistic armature. Which I'm very happy with having done the simplistic armature first. Let's see if we can get a better view. So we have a simplistic armature, 1 bone for the body, 1 for each of the legs, 1 for each of the arms, nothing for the head. And then we have this other circle over here. That's an empty, that's parented to the arm. So none of these are kind of parented to each other. None of them are parented to the body or anything. This is no meta rig or anything like that. But I think that's one of the next steps, probably. Doing a meta rig, doing a more complicated rigging, maybe trying to pull in Mixamo animations or something like that. I want to do more sophisticated animation work, especially now that the APIs exist in Bevy to do this. I also want to do more sophisticated texturing work. I am probably going to start using Substance Designer. So maybe we'll do some Substance stuff on stream to do texturing. That would be very fun, very cool. We can all learn a little bit together. You posted a question in the game dev channel. Let's see. Is this a quick one? In 0.15, using single for queries is nice if you're expecting one entity, and the change filter is nice if your system logic only needs it to run if changed, but you get a warning if you try to use both at the same time. Yes, because 0 is not single. It seems to warn only once and the system works normally, so I reckon the first tick doesn't fire. Is this a bug or is this a wrong pattern to use? Let's see. Single player changed. Single changed a little bit between the implementation and whatnot, but it is supposed to be just a direct parallel to query.single, the API. It's interesting that it's defined as an inaccessible system parameter. The only other bug is related to order independent transparency. That's interesting. Reactivity, pull requests. Where does this error come from? Okay, so the PR that added this was October 3rd. System parameter validation warnings. Warning once, that's the behavior you're seeing. Single unit with player with enemy. I would say that this is intentional based on my current knowledge of the way things are working. Does your system ever run? Yeah, the system works normally. So I think that this is just a, you can literally not tell if a system is not running, right? Like there is nothing to tell you that a system didn't run. So if you are querying for something like single and it doesn't find anything, technically you're looking for something that doesn't exist with a system. You've indicated intent to grab that thing, and it is not there. I would consider that to be somewhat of a bug in my game logic because I'm looking for something that isn't there, right? Query.single requires one specifically, not zero, not two or more, just one. So single is cool from a query perspective, but it does mean that if that thing doesn't exist, then your system doesn't run. So this is an expected warning, is my understanding of this. And if it does find something, then it will run. But there is no other way for you to be notified that it's not running. So that's where this warning is coming from. And you don't want to spam the console because this is valid if you want to write it like this. I think personally, I wouldn't write it like this just because of that warning. I would write it in a way that basically explicitly stated that this is something that can be 0 or 1, not just 1. Because I expect single to be single, right? I expect single to mean there's one in the world at all times this system is running. So I think I would want the warning, like manual warning, if that was not the case. But that's up to you. Do you mind having this in the console print out? If you don't mind it, then I think it works as expected. I don't think this is a bug. It's just whether you want to see that warning or not. You can also, I think, silence the warning, as I saw in this PR. Yeah. System param validation warnings are configurable and default to warn once. So if you intentionally want this to work like this, you can disable that warning if this is supposed to work like that. I think that's a good default in terms of Bevy. That might be the approach that I took if I wanted to write a system like this. I don't think there's anything wrong with the system, to be clear, Trevor. There's nothing inherently wrong with the way you've written this. I think that you probably want to look into how to disable the warning if you want to write it like this. Single is very new, so in terms of like best practices, we don't really have any yet because it hasn't been used by the wider ecosystem. So at this point, it's really up to you, whatever you want to do. There is an example here. Where's the example? Fallible params. Yeah, so it looks like it's just a function on each system. Yeah, you could also use a run condition, like run if whatever. But like, there's nothing inherently wrong with the way you've written the system. If you want to write it like this, if you want to use single, use never param warn for it, and it's done. Lots of choices. What is best? I don't think that there is a best. I think especially when it comes to game development, whatever works tends to be the rule. Right? Like, it really depends on how accurately you want to model. You don't see never warm param in 15. This is a 0.15 PR, so maybe they renamed it. Let me look at the example here. This PR is only in 0.15. So if it changed, where was that demo actually? Fallible params is in ECS. ECS. Fallible params. Never param warn. You probably need to bring in the trait or something like that. Nope. Prelude. Looks like it should just be there. Also, single, there must be at least one matching, or there must be exactly one matching. Populated, there must be at least one. You could do this option as well. 0 or 1. But if you only want the system to run when there's exactly one, then single is probably the right choice, and you probably want to disable the warning. But never param warn should be there. And if it's not there, then that means an October PR didn't make it in, which would be really weird. You could also potentially request it to be included. I think single, because single is 0.15. If this PR is not in and you're using single with 0.15, this might be something that you could request to add to the release candidate, especially since it's going to warn you all the time. It might also be worth including in like a release after that. So the PR that touched this was from quite a while ago, so I don't know why it wouldn't be in. Unless it got reverted. But it looks like it's in on master, or on main, sorry. So this was ace a4 e7. Also, it might not be a Bevy API, now that I think about it. Might be a different crate. Might be why I can't find it in the docs. This is October, one more, I think. There's a lot in October. Right, because October, yeah. Okay. I think one more. I keep saying one more, and I keep expecting it to get to like the 5th or the 3rd or whatever, and it doesn't. Oh, man. There it is. It's in. This made it in. So I don't know why it's not documented. I don't know where that is supposed to come from. take a look at the PR. Validate param unsafe, validate. Warn policy. This is from Bevy ECS system function system. Oh, it's pub crate. That looks like a bug. Wait. Try warn param. Advanced set warn policy. I wonder if this isn't in the prelude. Pub crate. What was the function that we needed to use? Never param warn. Never param warn is a public trait. So with param warn policy, I think if you can't access this in some way, it's a bug. I think this is supposed to be accessible. Oh no, this is fine. I've got until the next 3 minutes or whatever. I do think that you should bring this up in the Bevy Discord specifically. Bring it up in maybe the ECS channel or something. Say, hey, I'm trying to do this. I can't access this function. It might be as simple as just making something public. It may be that the examples have access to something that like a separate application doesn't. Yeah, that's totally valid, Hukasu. There's valid reasons to not like preludes. I think that they are probably more useful on balance than not useful. But I totally understand why you might not like one or might not use it. Yeah, so the function is here. Did it say doc hidden? Did you see that? Yeah, doc's hidden. I don't know why this is docs hidden if... Yeah, anyway, I would try to use it. Try to use it in your application. And if it doesn't work, then talk about it in Bevy ECS. I don't know what the stance is on this. I didn't watch that PR close enough as it went in. But yeah, cool. That's it for the stream for today. I will see you all next week and Saturday morning as usual. Actually Saturday morning. Yeah, Saturday morning. I think that's good. Trying to think of when the holidays are. Yeah. Yeah, Saturday morning we'll do a stream. That'll be good. Have a good rest of your day, y'all. And I will see you in the next one. With param warn policy. Okay, cool. That's good to know. The example might need to be up to date then. Updated. You might want to make that PR. If you want to contribute. Later, y'all. Thanks for hanging.